tapping away there in the background. Good morning, everybody. Hello, Brew Crew. As I said in the chat there, I am hopped up on some cold meds here, taking the emergency. The cold has struck me, and so we are going to hopefully, have a good Brew and Activate today. It might be one of those tangent ones because, as I was telling Shannon offline, these drugs sometimes, make me say things or I go weird places. So your job is to keep me on track.
Listen, don't blame the cold meds, okay? Because you always go off on a tangent.
I do, but that's a controlled tangent. I know where I'm going. I have a plan. This one, not so much. Well, good morning. Like I said, I'm Eric, call sign N1JUR, and I'm with my illustrious, wonderful co-host.
I am Shannon, KC1OHT, or to Echo Zero Oscar Hotel Tango, depending on what side of the pond you're on.
Yes, and we are your park guides, mentors, lovers of all things POTA, and everyone here. Welcome to another Brew and Activate, guys. Hopefully, you're interested in today's topic because we're going to get into some cool stuff. This has kind of been born out of some articles I've read and stuff like that, but we'll get into that in a bit. So with that, let's just kind of get into some of the basics here. So, as I always like to say, if this is your first time here, and I don't see any of the first time folks there, so it's good to see all of our usuals. But if you're first time here, let me share what we're all about. We love to explore, we love to analyze, reconstruct. We tear POTA down to its basic form and then build it back up, and we learn how to be better activators, better chasers. We love to do everything around POTA and in this ham radio hobby. So if you've come here to check all that stuff out, then you're definitely in the right place. So this week, we've got a bunch of great highlights that we're going to talk about, specifically around leaving no trace. But, before we do that, we always like to get into a few little admin details here first to get things going. I just want to let everybody know, as it always is good, as they say, the rule of threes when it comes to marketing. We've got finally Brew and Activate is officially in its own podcast form. So if you're like, Sean, who I know is, currently watching us from his jobby job. You can now listen to us offline anytime and listen to all of our back catalog. So you can always head over to our URL because we don't have it currently published on the lovely directory yet, but you can always use our main link there in the show notes, and those will be in all of our descriptions below. And check us out and get us into your, podcast list there. And let us know what you think. In essence, it's pretty much the raw version of the episode itself. So you're not missing anything. We try to shorten it up a little bit, but, there is definitely all the same content you get here live, you're going to get on the podcast. So you can always go back and check that stuff out. And as always, we love our Brew Crew folks. And so, we wanted to add to it because we had a few folks reach out and say, hey, where can I get stickers? Where can I get shirts and hats and stuff like that? So, we put together some stuff. I've actually ordered a few myself, so I'm waiting for those to come in. So we'll be sporting those soon. I know Shannon has got her first official, shirt out there. And so if you haven't checked that out, you want to make sure you go over there to livefreeandham.com/shop. Shannon's got her own small little section over there. She's going to be hopefully adding to that in the future. But she's got her first one. It's what did you title that shirt?
It's the POTA roll, and I'm actually getting a link to it right now so I can post it. So if you believe that the POTA wagon is the true MVP of any POTA activation, you are going to want to pick up this POTA roll shirt. So let me post that in the chat there. So go ahead and visit the Live Free and Ham store. Check out the POTA roll shirt. Comes in a variety of colors, not just pink. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and it definitely, and if you got a couple other cool designs, I know I'm always on the hunt for shirts and stuff like that, especially if POTA, focus and stuff like that. Throw us a line. If you end up, we end up creating a T-shirt out of it. We'd love to be able to send you one for free for all your efforts. So if you got some cool ideas, leave them in the chat. We're always on the prowl for that stuff. And, as a new thing here, I just wanted to kind of let folks know, you can always subscribe to both Shannon and I's channel if you haven't already. Definitely, we want to get Shannon up there in the numbers. So, please spread the love, get her some more subscribers there. It's something you can do for free and doesn't cost anything more than 2 seconds of your click of your mouse. And there's this new hype feature that I'm seeing out there. So, hey, if you'd love to show us some hype there, definitely click that button and helps us get into other people's feeds. And it's a nice, easy way to be able to help support the show. But if you'd love to be able to support the show as well, you can always head over to our wonderful Discord. And that link there is always in all of our descriptions below, but here in the chat as well. And you can come be part of all of the Brew and Activate conversation. And there's a lot more other activities out there. Shannon and I are very active on the Live Freenham Discord. And there's folks like Grouch, the Shannon, myself, and everybody else, including the Live Freenham crew. So come be a part of that. Say hello and, join in on the conversation. And then, as we always like to say, we like to keep these things ad-free. So, a way you can support our show is obviously through super chats and likes as well. So, help keep us ad-free out of the YouTube world space for the show as much as we can, and help support the show that way. So, always appreciate all of those. And I think actually after that, as I always say, hey. We've got a lot of sponsors who support our show. And lastly, Mad Dog Coils, Halibut Electronics, Reliance, all those guys, and Spooltenna, all those guys very much help support the show. And they all give you some great discounts. So you can always head over to our discount page really quickly, check all those discounts, and get some, obviously money back and save a little bit on any of those purchases if you're looking to get into some antennas. But hey, if you might be lucky, and you stick around tonight, we'll put in the Discord if Shannon wants to put in this chat, I should say, if Shannon wants to remember to grab the link, and she can use hers for her show. That way it might prop her, subs up there and her views for our Northeast Ham Radio live stream tonight. It's our Christmas episode, so there'll be a lot of giveaways. Here, Santa Izzo's, or what we call him, Santa Elf Izzo, is going to be pulling up in the El Camino, packed full of some giveaways, and that may include, Spooltenna and Reliance and a few other really cool stuff. So, you want to head over to that, check out that tonight. That is at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. All right. Did I get everything?
Don N5SKT down in my chat. Don't we also need to get Shannon's watch hours up? Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. You head over to her channel. Definitely do that for sure. All right. Another refuel there of the emergency. And let's dive into our usual POTA minute this morning here.
All right,
All
stop
right, well-
the presses.
Ooh.
Shannon said that today is Sean's birthday.
What?
So
How did
we
that
have
get by?
to give a birthday shout out to
Ooh.
Sean in the
Yes.
chat. And if you want to hear me sing happy birthday, then you have to send at least a $5 super chat to Eric's channel right now.
$5. You mean not sing or sing? Because the way Grouch words it, it's like it'll cost you nothing for free nudes, but if you send me $25,
there you go. So if you want to hear me sing happy birthday, send $5. But if you don't want to hear me sing, send $10.
$10. There we go. And you heard her for sure. She will hold it, and this show goes another 45 minutes to at least another hour. So, she has plenty of time to warm up the vocal cords. Yes, that is awesome. And good to hear, and happy birthday for sure. And you must be a 25, 35-year-old young, as they say, right?
Or, it's like the 10th anniversary of your 25th birthday.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm learning to do new math here for sure. Single.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
uh-oh.
Uh-oh. We'll keep this going here. See whether or not people want this. I am not a great singer either, so I don't know if you want to hear me sing. That's why I'm on front of a mic talking. All right. Well, let's just dive into the POTA minute real quick here while you guys are deciding. I just wanted to kind of bring some attention to some stuff that's kind of happening in the POTA world. This one is something you may or may not have seen recently. This has been up on the POTA Discord. You might had recalled at one time, in our POTA, journey here, that we used to have to send our logs to all of our area, coordinator, mapping coordinator folks every time you did an activation. And that was we'll say the dark times, in terms of delay and waiting for your logs to get posted.
Wow, yeah, that must have been like medieval times because I never had to do that.
Oh, you never did. So that was one of the things that I learned very quickly, and I got to become really good friends with my mapping coordinator and having conversations with them. Well, that's kind of changed now. So the POTA world, it used to be that if you had any questions or you wanted to engage your area coordinator, you'd email them at K, whatever the section number was. So mine was always K1 at Parks on the Air. Well, they have now made a quick change to obviously facilitate better organization and being able to get your questions answered fast. And they have now forwarded all of their K1 addresses right to the help desk. So you're now going to be generating help desk tickets. Don't give up on that system, because in essence, that's where all of those same great POTA coordinators are all sitting on helping and answering all your questions. And all those volunteers give out tireless amounts of effort and time into the program because they love it and support it. So, definitely keep using the system that they put in place. But if you do happen to hold on to their private address, use it sparingly. Be kind. Don't just randomly email them all the time. Send them some love. Tell them how great they're doing. But obviously, send all of your official POTA requests and coordination, parks and inquiries and that type of stuff to the help desk. That way, it gets responded to and people can easily, get back to you and get your answers for you. So there's that. And then the last one I think I saw just recently, I don't know if you've been up to the POTA database or POTA website. They just posted that they were looking for more developers. So if you are so inclined with the, mastery of code and keyboard, or maybe in design skills, you could help affect, some really good change and improvements in the POTA, the world that we all know and love, and have been very much happy to have in place. It's made it so popular, but at the same time, there's a lot of tireless love and development in there. So, head on over there. If you've got some of those skills and you can help donate and volunteer some of your time to be able to help code or, do UI design, whatever, check all that stuff out. It's up at the top of their header on their page. And so that's the POTA Minute for this week. I think it's nice and light, easy, for people to digest, and everyone's good and happy about it. So definitely good there. Well, we're going to skip over our usual POTA bucket list. We didn't have any entries this week for that. But if you want to, you can always go over to the POTA bucket list on my website there, and links in the chat. That'll, you can add your POTA bucket list items that you want to achieve. And then the idea is in the new year, we'll be rolling out some activities around that, couple private live streams for all those folks that are part of that. So if you want to be part of promoting and getting better in the hobby, or maybe you got some bucket list items that you want to tackle, we can help support each other and kind of build a little kind of cool community around that. So good on that. All right. We got anything in the chat we want to highlight, Shannon, or?
Yeah, so it's funny. Rabbit Ham said, did you see Virginia removed all the wildlife management areas? Well, welcome to the basic topic of our show this week.
I know, right? Exactly.
And, Shannon said, yep, that was wild. Just hope it doesn't hit more states.
Yeah. And a lot of interesting stuff that kind of came out of that, because I did see that article. And there have been a few videos that kind of got posted. I know we threw a couple up on our Discord to kind of, bolster the chat a little bit. But I think today's topic, we're going to talk around that, but not directly at whether or not that was the right move. I think in the case in terms of fostering the program and keeping, POTA alive and well, and not keep your vocal cords safe. Thank you so much, Ham Radio F. I will definitely do that for sure. The idea is really just like, we're ambassadors. So we're going to talk around kind of that topic about what POTA and being an ambassador, and then providing some maybe kind of quick tips and things you can think about with you're developing your activation kit about, leaving no trace behind. And that's a big hiker thing. If you're definitely hiking, that is very much a point that is driven home a lot. And I think as the POTA community, we've grown so much and so fast that we might have forgotten to also, kind of apply that same strategy in taking care of the resources that, we're granted to use. And a lot of times I think we've also sometimes, flexed our muscles too much in the sense of, really just making it all about, we have the right versus, this is a responsibility and a privilege kind of thing. So cool. All right. Well, yeah, that is our topic today. So with that, let's just see if we got anything there. Thank you guys again for the $5 chats there. I forgot to kick off the goal there. Let me just do this real quick. While you're doing that, you can highlight anything, Shannon. And let me just do this. Yeah.
And then Shannon also mentioned, the FCC gave us a little bit more space on 60 meters, which is, I didn't know that was a thing they could do. Usually they're taking it away. They're not giving it. So, we should be grateful for everything they give us.
Well, the way you say it, it's like, thank you. Can I have another, please?
Yeah, like, please, sir, can I have some more?
All right. Okay, so I got one more super chat goal here. This, again, we're going to follow the same suit like we did last week. I'm going to throw out a super chat there for 30 minutes here. And again, it's going to be the goal, as always, if you are interested in getting a Live Free and Ham t-shirt, anything in the store, let me know. You can go ahead and if you meet the goal, then we'll send a t-shirt your way of your choice and, add that to the list there. So, okay, that's good there. All right. So let's get into kind of the topic today, since it's obviously very fresh in people's minds and whatnot. And so, like we alluded to, and a few others in the chat already mentioned, we're going to talk around what had kind of happened in Virginia. It was kind of a surprise. I don't know. Let me ask you, Shannon, how did you feel about that whole announcement that kind of came out?
I don't know how I feel about it. In some ways it makes a little bit of sense, right? Because it's, a wildlife management area isn't really the same as a state or a national park. It's almost more like almost like a wildlife sanctuary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
and along with wildlife, we know that everything is connected in an ecosystem, right? So that includes plants, that includes water, that includes animals. So really everything that goes on in that area, you should really be putting nature first, right? And sometimes maybe, having a large influx of people to activate a POTA park, or having, hanging antennas in trees, or driving stakes into the ground might not be the best course of action for an environmentally sensitive area that you're trying to manage and protect.
Yeah. I definitely wholeheartedly agree with that, because I think one of the things that, and this may not apply, because I know each state treats, like, we'll say public lands, or, specific, lands that are targeted for a purpose or whatever, as a different, like, I know in Texas, they have the BLM kind of lands, and like where wildlife management stuff does occur up here in the Northeast a lot. We definitely have a lot of those areas. They're very much like natural kind of basically rough areas. They're not like, they don't have park benches. They don't have those types of things. They're not usually a whole heavily built around trail systems and stuff like that. So they're just really natural. So I can understand the need to want to maintain, to keep the natural ability of both, you know, the land itself and, you know, the purpose of whatever it was, tagged for. So, you know, the idea is definitely one of those things that when I go to activate those, you know, for me is making sure that I spend very much, you know, not trying to do any damage to whatever area I'm in, not trying to create a huge, large footprint, and very much, you know, kind of quickly pack in, pack out, you know, and get everything out and leave it as better in most cases that than I would if, when I first got there. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting kind of feeling because I think I watched all the videos. I know KB9VBR had a video out, and then I can't remember the original video I posted from who put the original post out there, as well as the Virginia map coordinator. He also sent an official email out and post that on all of the socials and stuff like that. But I wanted to kind of, instead of talk about the merits of like whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, it is what it is, but it also kind of throws up a warning or a caution to a lot of us in other states, in other parts of the country, that we need to consider very much what we have as the POTA world and activations and being able to do all the things that we do with not having to deal with always getting special use permits, not having to do all of these hoop jumping activities to be able to enjoy ham radio. And part of today's conversation, we're going to kind of obviously talk about just the high level stuff real quick that, you know, kind of came out of that email. But I wanted to take a little deeper dive today and say, well, what action items can I give you guys tonight to basically say, what can you do to look at your POTA kits, look at your implementation of how you do an activation, and minimize that footprint a little bit better. So we're not doing damage to, you know, physical land if we happen to, by having to stake down antennas or, like Shannon said, in trees and that type of stuff. And you know, see what you guys have maybe done in your, you know, kind of setups to make those adjustments, and then talk around the big thing. You know, we're all ambassadors to this program. We all have to do it more so as a ham radio operator than like we're doing parks on the air. Because I don't know about you, Shannon, but how many, I mean, do you get asked a lot when you're out activating what you're doing?
I mean, I wouldn't say it happens a lot, but I would say, you know, depending on where I am, if I'm in a fairly public area, like probably at least once, once an activation, if somebody comes walking by, like, you know, they'll be looking or they'll be like, hey, what are you up to?
Yep. Yeah, I think there's always going to be that aspect. And I saw a comment in here. Was that from Jabberjaws? Yeah, there. She had said really quickly, you know, being good stewards is the key. 100% agree with that. And you will always, and we all have the name for them. They're the lids. They're the ones that, you know, feel like, you know, it's their way or the highway. And those can and have in the past as examples, maybe, you know, put a bad spin or bad light on some of the folks that are very much trying to do, you know, a positive look to it. So yeah, definitely, you know, it's something to be aware of for sure. And back to Shannon's point about having, you know, conversations with people. One thing I'm actually being a little bit more keen on now that this has kind of happened, and when I talk to people, I try not to use too complex terms with it. Like I try to make it as simple as possible. The handouts are great. I actually am going to probably in my kit, and I'll allude to this in when we get into our conversation a little bit more, not having so much giving the Parks on the Air brochure out there, but more just a ham radio kind of stance, because the Parks on the Air program for me is a great program, but it's not an official stance. It's not a ham radio, you know, licensed, you know, event, although we are doing ham radio. It's just an activity that we participate in, like a contest or, or something similar to that, that was created for us to be able to have fun and enjoy the hobby. I'm trying to change my words around now that when I'm activating, I'm not saying it's a Parks on the Air thing. I'm saying I'm a ham radio operator now, doing ham radio like activities, making contacts with people around the world. And then, if they allude more, they ask more questions, or they discuss, they're trying to find out more, then I'll bring the Parks on the Air program. But I'm trying to make in my mind more clear separation, primarily for the park rangers, so they don't understand that this is like something that is a organized, event by, a nonprofit organization, blah, blah, blah. I want to make it first and foremost that it's a ham radio activity, not with me doing something specific around Parks on the Air. So we'll get into that in a little bit and my reasonings behind it. So let's just do real quick. And I promised Shannon we would not do whiteboard today. So those that came prepared for the whiteboard, we are kiboshing it today. And we're going to just, kind of do talking heads, session here. So those that were prepared for the smell of, the dry erase markers, I'm sorry, you'll have to get your own set and sit and watch.
So here's like a little analogy that I kind of think of it, like if you're out in, any park really, not just not just a wildlife management area or a state park or national park that is, signed up with POTA. So first of all, like every state has its own way of doing things, right? Every state kind of has its own government, its own different little agency. So they're going to run their wildlife management areas in a little bit of a different way. So that's why it's important to, not just look on the POTA site, but, they have links to the parks on the POTA site. So you want to actually go on that park's website, read through and see if they have any rules about, activities that you can and cannot do at this park, if they require a permit for, whatever, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's a little bit like the TSA, right? So even though me as a crafter, right? So I want to bring my knitting needles, I want to bring my crochet hook, I want to bring my scissors so I can cut my yarn. Even though the rules on the TSA website say I can bring those things on a plane in my carry-on, ultimately it is up to the TSA agent. And if they tell me that I can't bring those things, then am I going to cause a scene at the screening area, or am I just going to say, okay, that's fine and comply and, get on the plane,
Right.
right?
Right. Yep.
So, don't bring anything with you that you would be too afraid to lose is my motto with that. And I think going into the park is a little bit of the same, right? Even though the rules may say that we can do this, ultimately it is up to the ranger's discretion if they want to let us do that on that particular day, or if what we are doing is causing too much of a trouble.
Yep.
So, it's like, it's best to just sort of say, okay, that's fine, shut it down for today. Like it is just ham radio. It is
Mhm.
not life or death. So, let's try to be, like you said, let's be good stewards, good ambassadors. Let's not give all ham radio operators a bad name.
Mhm.
But, then at the same time, we shouldn't paint all rangers with a bad
Yeah.
paintbrush
Right.
and be like, "Oh, here comes that ranger. He's gonna throw me out of the park or whatever." Because a little anecdotal story here, and I know Eric right now is going crazy because 'cause I'm talking way too much.
No, dude.
But so
Go right ahead.
I went to Halibut Point State Park in Rockport, Massachusetts, right? And somebody had told me, they were like, "Oh, you're going to go there because I tried to go there and I tried to play radio and they wouldn't let me and they threw me out and da da da, all this stuff." And I was like, so I went there and I just activated from the car. I didn't set anything up in the park. It was when I actually, I had loaned my 710 to someone, so I didn't have it, so I only had my G90.
Hmm.
So I had, the whip on top of the car. I had the G90 in the back. I was sitting in the chair, in the back trunk of the Subaru. And the ranger guy came over and he was just like, hey, what's up? We love it when you guys come here and do this. And I'm just sitting there thinking in my head, like, okay, that goes against everything that, that the people in my club told me. So, I don't know what's going on here, why that happened in that one particular case. They did
Hmm.
say that it was sort of like they tried to do, I think, a group POTA activation. So maybe they saw like all these people coming at once and they got a little like, whoa, scared off. Maybe they were trying to set up the antennas, on the grass or near the beach or wherever it was, someplace that they thought it was going to be in the way of other visitors. I don't know.
Hmm.
But so let's try to work with the rangers, with the establishment. Let's not try to work against them.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think everybody's going to have a story. I know Don threw his in there saying, having a beer. I get that. Every park is obviously got its own set of challenges and issues, and I'm sure they're trying to very much, make it safe for everybody, even though, you might not be one of those rowdy, kind of crews that, we all have make points on. So, yeah, so let's kind of start somewhere. So I'm not going to post anything. I'm just going to kind of give off the top 5 that came out of that email. So if you haven't seen the email, it's on all of the Discord, all the POTA Discords and Facebook message groups and stuff like that. They posted this thing called Leave No Trace for POTA Operators, and this came out of the Virginia mapping coordinator. And so his top 5 things were obviously protect the land, protect the hobby was the big thing and big kind of overarching thing. And these kind of go parallel with a lot of the hiking community too as well. So pack it in, pack it out. That is always a big thing. I know a lot of us activators, when we go out and do our activations, sometimes can be grandiose. I mean, I try to keep it very small and off the beaten path and not in the way, both of my antennas and in my setup. But they, a lot of times, I've seen a few photos and stuff like that where people are putting up large, POTA flags and POTA operators, activation in progress kind of things and all of that type of stuff, which does attract, and it's okay. But I think in this day and age, we want to kind of try to enjoy as much as we can, because naturally when they're hearing things or they're hearing these, weird sounds coming from your radio, if you're not on a headset or whatever, or headphones, then, they're going to be curious in general. So being cognizant of kind of that stuff, being cognizant of your noise level is obviously a big thing, but pack it in, pack it out. So everything you brought in, you should basically bring with you. So try to figure out what in that kit, you can minimize or shorten up to be able to make it a little bit more, easy for you, but at the same time, good in the setup. The next one was use low impact setups. This is a tough one because I know a lot of hams that there's a few I ran into that out of Vermont, and they literally bring an amplifier and they bring, the radio gear, and it's literally like they're doing a big family picnic kind of thing. And it's just them, and they're surrounded by literally almost everything in their shack, and they've got large wire antennas and stuff like that. And I like the idea. I like the drive the person's got, but at the same time, is it really kind of necessary? Because you're adding more to noise and other things in the environment, and even though it's nicer to be able to activate with a kilowatt, do you really need to? I mean, you could do that from your own shack. So think about that. Minimal stakes, minimal footprint. And definitely, like as Shannon and I allude to, no damage to the environment. Like, try to minimize, your throw lines. If you can, put a drive-on mast, do it that way. If you can, put up lean a pole. K Murder's big on this. He loves to do his, gangster lean pole on all of his trees, so he's not putting anything up in the trees themselves. And if he's draping stuff over wires or branches, he's doing it very, delicately and whatnot. So, kind of adopt that strategy. And then the last kind of 3 is durable surfaces, which I myself try to find a lot of, but, try to stay off of, wetland areas that aren't, part of the path. Like you might be on a trail system. Try to find a trail opening that's got, basically set up for people to basically stop or, wait or whatever be the case. Give you enough space, but at the same time, it's not like you're carving a whole new, trail system on your own. Try to definitely think in considerations around that. And picnic tables always a big plus. I always try to find those as much as I can, and pavilions. Those are always a good thing, but try to be wary of obviously the surroundings in terms of the cover. Like, there are special wildlife plants over in the corner that may not be tagged at that time, but you're plopping yourself down in the middle of this, rare, flower, honeysuckle flower that only blooms, every 2 or 3 years or whatever. Kind of take in consideration to your surroundings big time. Wildlife, that's kind of a hand in hand. I don't usually have that. Our wildlife around here, at least in the New Hampshire area, is people and dogs. Not so much. I haven't gone out into many places yet that have bears that I have to worry about.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? Because there are definitely bears and deer and coyotes.
There
And,
are.
I'm sure there's other things in New Hampshire, but, yeah, to kind of go back to what you were saying about like staying on the trail, right? So, especially, depending on what area you're in, there's certain zones, right? So Peter, as a huge hiker, I don't know so much about this. I only know what he told me, but there's like an alpine zone, right? Once you cross a certain threshold on a mountain where like trees don't grow anymore, and you're in this alpine zone and the plants are all really low because they're usually like covered in snow for 6 months out of the year, and you're
Hmm.
like not supposed to go off trail when you're in the alpine zone for that reason, because you know they actually, up in New Hampshire, they had these like cutesy little signs that basically said like grass grows by inches and dies by feet. So it's like,
I've never heard
by
of that.
by you walking on these grasses, and these plants can like literally just kill them, and they only grow in these very certain areas, and so they are sort of endangered, right? And then same thing, there's like wilderness zones in certain mountains in New Hampshire, and I'm sure they must have something similar in Virginia, because there's mountains in Virginia, that in these wilderness areas, like even the park rangers, if they need to do any kind of like trail maintenance or whatever, it's like they can't bring motorized vehicles. They have to bring horses or donkeys or something. I don't know what they use, but and then like they're not supposed to build any structures. So I don't know how that could possibly that might include putting up an antenna, right? Because you're putting up possibly mast, guy lines, whatever.
Yep.
So that's another thing to definitely look out for when you're doing POTA or SOTA.
100%. All right, I'm going to leave this next topic to Shannon. I'm going to run and I got to refill my water because I can already feel my voice starting to go. So, Shannon, last one in this list is leave it better than you found it. Go to it. Give them hell. I'm right back.
All right. And while he's gone, I'll sing happy birthday to Sean, because that'll fill up the time. So this is for those two $5 super chats. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sean. Happy birthday to you, and many more. So there you go. That goes out for Sean for his birthday. So thank you for those two $5 super chats, and we'll look forward to seeing Sean on the Northeast Ham Radio live stream tonight, which will be on Eric's channel and my channel. Although actually Eric said he might not be able to make it because he's not feeling good, so he's trying to rest his voice. So it may or may not be on Eric's channel. It'll definitely be on my channel. It'll definitely be on Live Free and Ham channel, so be looking for us there. And then let's see what we have going on back here in chat. So Joe K9JPP, welcome in, loving the topic today. Yeah, Ham Radio Hef, you don't want beer spray. you definitely want a bear spray. And yeah, so a little bear story I'll tell since Eric still isn't back yet. Oh, it'll be on Mike's channel too, so we don't want to forget about Mike and to MAK. He's still here. Um, so yeah, Peter and I, we went camping like, gosh, this was before we were married, before we had Miles. We went camping at our favorite campground in New Hampshire, which is Lafayette State Park. And it must have been like maybe just in the beginning of the summer. And we were in our favorite spot, which is like right on the corner. And there was like these two little black bear cubs that were like twins. And it must have been the first spring or summer that they were like pushed out of the nest and they had to go try and find their own food. And these bears were like causing havoc throughout the campground. So one night, it was like the middle of the night, I heard someone from another campground, they yelled, "Bear!" And then you hear like their car door slam and their
Oh
engine
my.
start. And, and I see the rangers come by through our campsite with, with flashlights. It was the middle of the night. Peter and we were asleep. So I end up shaking Peter. I'm like, honey, there's a bear out there. And he's like, did you bring any food in the tent? I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, well, go back to sleep then. And I'm like, but honey, I got to go to the bathroom. So, I wanted him to walk me to the bathroom because
Sure.
I don't like to walk to the bathroom by myself in the dark anyway.
Yeah. No,
But
I know that.
yeah. So we had to get up and go to the restroom. But yeah, so there are black bears in New Hampshire. So
Yep. I don't disagree. The bear aspect of it is, they're obviously something to worry about. I don't think I've ever been, especially when I activate a lot in mass, even at some of the, major remote wildlife areas, they are not there. I do see a lot of deer, that is for sure. So, that I can deal with. So, all right, cool. The next thing I wanted to kind of do is that we obviously, that list is in my mind a good list to start. Obviously, in keeping in the back of your mind, it's easy to remember, and you can kind of follow through. But I wanted to kind of break this down a little bit more because I can never leave anything alone. We got to tear into it a little bit. So this is more. We're going to break this into an individual and an equipment kind of focused, and this is just all around the you in terms of you as the activator, and so. From that, I mean, we're going to do a lot of overlap, and I think we did talk a few things. One of the things that I kind of felt that when we were talking, when it comes to activating, we're going to talk about the you as an activator first, and then we'll talk maybe about the equipment pieces that you can help to, improve your setups, your activations, and your teardowns, and following along that line of leaving it better than you found it kind of approach. So I think a lot of us, and majority of ham radio operators are approachable and friendly. We all need to remember that in that covering or the overarching theme that we've been talking about today, being an ambassador, being friendly is very important in this process. That if you are out there doing ham radio, you're going to get approached. You're going to get asked questions. You might, have an onlooker stop and stare at you for a couple minutes. I mean, we had a live stream that Todd and I did for our kilo at the rail trail, and we had a guy on a bike literally stop and stare at us for 25 minutes straight while we were activating. And both Todd and I were like, we stop our conversation, have, hey, how's it going? If there's any questions I can, answer for you, go ahead and ask, make it an open conversation. But we were very friendly in the approach of, hey, this is what we're doing. We always tried to make our conversation, our answers in the conversation short and sweet, and very much, this is, we're playing ham radio. Oh, well, what's ham radio? Well, ham radio is, we talk to people around the world through, RF. Oh, and then you just kind of build upon the conversation there, always being friendly. I always try to, when I'm activating, and I have people walking by all the time, I'll throw a smile, say hello, as they pass by, they may say hello and continue on with doing whatever they're doing. That's totally fine. But, creating an environment that allows curiosity, it's that whole Ted Lasso approach, be curious, not judgmental. That's kind of my, approach with when I go out and activate. So try to give them opportunities to ask questions. Don't worry about your freaking activation. You can get 10 contacts in, you're not time limited. You can do, your activation in hours. And if you don't get a complete activation, oh, well, hopefully maybe you inspired somebody, maybe you educated somebody, maybe you were just friendly and they were having a crappy, shitty day. And, you made, them smile for whatever reason. Think in those terms and be always approachable, be friendly. Don't isolate yourself. Try to stay in places that, you're not, having to, cause yourself or people to come off the beaten trail. If you have to operate, operate in places that, it's convenient for both you and those people and your antenna setup, because that I think is a big thing there. Anything you want to add to that, Shannon? Because you got a big smile on there, so you're definitely, making everybody happy today.
Oh yeah, I'm just reading, Rabbit Ham. He said,
Oh.
where the pigeons from Madagascar say, smile and wave. Like,
Yes, yeah.
a smile goes a long way. It's
It
the
does.
universal language, right, of friendship. So,
100%.
it's like we have to expect that if we are out there and we are doing something that looks a little weird or different, then yeah, we're gonna attract attention. And, I'm sure maybe Shannon has experienced this as well as myself, right? Like a lot of times as a lady, we probably look a little bit more approachable. And I think
Hmm.
we even talked about that on the show a little bit, is that, especially if someone has kids, right? Like they're maybe going to be a little bit more likely to approach someone that, a woman, maybe she looks like a mom herself or whatever. So they're going to want to come over and talk to us, and we should be prepared for that and, try not to put people off, because it's like maybe hams already have a little bit of a stereotype of being like grumpy old men. So let's
In
not
a
try,
basement.
yeah, let's try not to, make that stereotype continue to be true.
Yep. That is for sure. Yeah, they definitely come out of the woodwork there, Shannon, for sure. And it is always easier to basically, like we all said, flash a smile, say hello, and let them go on doing their thing than it is to, very much, say, hold on a sec, wait, blah, 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 whatever. Like, basically give them your time and they'll realize that, that you want to get your time back. So they'll keep the conversation short and sweet. So kind of the other things that kind of came out of some of my, general research, which I'm getting into less, and I alluded to this at the very beginning of the show, was having all of the POTA flyers and everything ready, available. One of the things I'm doing a lot less, I find, when I'm doing all these activations is that I'm carrying around more of just, say, a small little card. So I've got this little 3x5 card that says, what is ham radio? And it's got a nice little, image there. And then on the back is a little QR code. And all they have to do is just click it, and they can go off and research. But I keep that kind of close by with me. And so if someone's just like really quickly wants to get answers, I'm giving them the card. The one thing I'm doing less of that I alluded to was I'm not telling them that it's parks on the air first. I think that causes a little bit of confusion in a lot of people, because they're like, oh, is this an official, like, ranger thing? Or is this like, are you doing bird migration kind of monitoring? Or, it kind of brings in a different tangent, instead of just saying, hey, I'm an individual, I'm doing ham radio. And with that, we're doing this small little non-contest thing called Parks on the Air, and, make it in a way that it's not an official thing. Especially, this is where I did, was mentioning before, don't do this in front of the Rangers. If you start out initially and say, I'm here activating as an FCC certified licensed ham radio operator, and I am, doing this Parks on the Air program, they're going to get a little bit more we'll say standoffish, because in essence, in their mind, when they hear official program, a lot of times, and this has happened to me when I did Clough State Park, I started out saying, hey, I'm a ham operator, and I'm doing parks on the air here. And they were like, oh, it's a program, and they started kind of getting into this like official, like where's the organization, who's supporting this, is this something that I should have known about as a in the official correspondence come from the Rangers community or whatever, that didn't come down to me, or I got missed. And then that opens up this conversation of like having, oh, do I need a special use permit and blah blah blah. And then I've learned in that one scenario that it was best to say that I was just a ham radio operator, having fun, playing radio, making contacts with people, and leave it at that. And I bet you it would have been a whole different stance than me getting into him sending me a brochure, him sending me the links to do a special state permit, him giving me the authority that's saying, hey, not this time, but next time you come to the park, you need a special use permit. And, I learned that it's better off, that I just make it about me, sadly, in this case, because it really should be, because I dragging other things in like the Parks in the Air program just only clouds the event, although it's helpful, especially if you're having conversations with people. So yeah, think in those terms and think about, just very much it's you and the person, you and the ranger, and you're doing ham radio as a ham radio operator, and go from there. And that'll probably go a long way.
Right. So, keep it simple, silly, for one thing.
I like stupid, just
don't,
stupid.
I don't like to say stupid. That's not a nice word.
I know, your mom, my wife, once my kids hit 25, we were dropping the F-bombs, and all of a sudden stupid was perfectly fine.
But, so it's like, or, to put it another way, just the facts, ma'am. So, do not overwhelm these people with information. And I understand that, like, as ham radio operators, a lot of times we have a little touch of the tism, and part of that goes into like info dumping. So do not info dump on these rangers, because that is just going to cause them to have more questions, and maybe more likely that they're going to say that, you need to have a permit, or you can't do that here, or, whatever the case may be. So if you just kind of keep it simple and say, hey, look, I'm a ham radio operator. I'm just out here trying to talk to some people. The parks are good because there's a lot less RF noise. There's no houses around, so, and just keep it at that. And, there you go.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. This is why I have this shirt. Like, when you said info dumping, your ham radio is showing, is basically what it means. It's like, stop, just make it simple, stop being.
Well, that's like, I made this meme a long time ago that had like the 2 jars of money. And I think originally it said something like, swear jar, and then, talking about my cat when I wasn't asked. But I turned it into like swear jar, talking about ham radio when I wasn't asked.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
we try to find a way to like sneak that into like any conversation. When you meet a new person, you're like, oh, and by the way, I'm a ham radio operator. And you like kind of see if you get any bites.
Yeah, very much so. Cool. All right. So yeah, that's from an individual standpoint, those are definitely some good points. I think we always touched upon a lot of the Ranger stuff, making sure, when we stress the point is you're playing radio, don't do anything else. Like, keep it very simple. And then you really, like Shannon alluded to this earlier, get to know your boundaries and restrictions. A lot of us don't spend the time understanding what those are, because we always like to push them. So pay attention to that. And one helpful way is, befriend the Rangers, because in essence, they are going to be your source, your true source of where you can go, what you can do, what's acceptable, what's not. And as long as you're friending them and becoming building a good, again, around that whole ambassador state, you're a good ambassador at ham radio, you're becoming good friends with them, they're going to go, it's going to go a long way for other people that come into the park, because then at that point you can say, there might be other folks that'll be here doing this too as well. And, it's okay to go up to them and say hello and engage them and let them know that, like Shannon shared the example of like, the ranger came up and said, hey, we enjoy you doing that stuff, because he had a good positive experience with some other ham somewhere earlier in his, in this process, and said, yeah, I like this. We're bringing people into the park. We're doing some really good stuff. And so he was a supporter of that. And so that's what we want to build, is we want to build a support system, and think about that when you talk to your rangers, you talk to your park staff and that type of stuff. Let them know how you can help, how you can be helpful, and at the same time, understanding, asking those questions. Where's the boundaries? How far can I go? What can I do? What's not acceptable? What is? Okay. So I think we beat that horse enough in the sense of that. You agree?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's talk equipment, because I'm sure everybody's here about equipment, kind of thinking, what can I do to optimize my footprint of both my equipment and stuff like that? And some of you guys may be already doing some of this, but this is some of the few things that I came up from a low impact, low profile kind of setup. First thing and foremost was carbon fiber telescoping mast. I know a lot of us love to use the trees, love to use nature to throw lines up and stuff like that. Let's start thinking more in the sense that let's build our own tree system to be able to put our masts up and take them down, where we're not impacting, any of the nature. Like here in New Hampshire, we have so many freaking trees. It's like, the only way you could escape them is to go to the beach. And at that point, you do have to use some type of a mast or whatever. But think carbon fiber, think fiberglass telescoping mast, 10 meter, whatever you can afford and put in your kit. And then that'll go a long way, especially if you're a wire guy or gal and you like to, basically put up wire antennas a lot. It's very easy to deploy them. There's no ground damage. A lot of times you can add to that if you're parked in a vehicle space and you can set up a wire, you can use the drive-on masts or the hitch mounts and that type of stuff. Very easy to deploy, very useful, and minimizes impact to the environment. Feel free to throw in any of these if I miss anything, or you got a few there in the chat, Shannon, or you've got some yourself. End-fed or vertical antennas. Well, end-feds, obviously very easy to deploy. They're usually a smaller footprint versus, say, that over a dipole. Like a dipole, you've got 3 mounting locations you've got to consider. So a lot of times you might put a dipole up with the balun in the middle, or the feed line coming off the top of the tree. So try to think the best configuration that you can build for the purpose you're doing, meaning end-feds are going to probably serve better because, again, along the lines of having a carbon fiber mast or, having a fiberglass pole, you can put one end up and then drape the other end at a lower point to your table or the picnic bench or to another clamp, or whatever. And you're very much, working in a smaller space a lot of times than, say, over a dipole where you're going to have to spread out the wire. Or I know a few folks love to do doublets and that type of stuff. Those, as we start to get bigger in our antennas, we require more space. Try to think about how you can reduce, but come up with better ways to be able to, to obviously make more communications. That's why we're trying these other antennas out. So we're doing things to be able to make better contacts, to learn about antenna building and that type of stuff. So, but be cognizant of like the space a physical antenna can make up. Like, don't bring a 160 meter antenna to a park. Like, just don't. Like, I mean, like, I get it. I understand why you'd want to, but try something else.
You mean don't be us at the 24-hour POTA campout where had that really long
that was totally
wire
okay.
that tuned up 160 meters?
That was totally okay because one, we had basically rented the space, so we had already purchased it. We already were under their permits at that point, and putting that up, we already had permission to put up any wire antenna, anything like that from the ranger, and we already had a great relationship with the ranger, so we already checked all those boxes. So it didn't matter. That wire could have been, we could probably put up a full 50-foot tower, aluminum tower, and he would have been like, "Cool, just take it down, just don't ruin anything."
Goals for next year, maybe.
Oh my gosh!
Power on a trailer, crank up.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's perfectly fine. You pull that. There's a few people that I know that have crank up towers on a trailers and they pull in the parking lots. That for a couple of hours for me, don't get me going.
A couple. It was 24.
No, well, our 24 hours, yes, but I've seen a few. The guy from Vermont I know really well. He literally pulls a trailer up with a tower on it, cranks it up, and it's a 25-foot tower, and he does a 4-hour activation. And I'm like, that's in my mind really too much. Like gas, time, energy, and effort for the fact that you're, just spend the money and buy an amplifier and put it on the bench next to you and power it off another battery. Short change, just think quicker, not like you're going to be there for the rest of your life. The ground pad, small tables. This is always a good thing. I love the Helinox brand of tables. Just a little plug here. If you like Helinox itself, I'm actually giving away one on our live stream tonight. It's not the table, but it is the chair. So, if you're a big fan of that, that'll be a giveaway item. So you definitely want to come, to the 7 p.m. Christmas extravaganza, as Mike alluded to earlier in their chat. But yeah, think about placement and using the things that are provided. So like if you've got a park bench, or a picnic table, use it. Now, the big things, this is where I think is important. Like if you've got one of those monster mats from Quirky QRP, those are okay to bring because in essence, you're putting them on top of a surface that, who knows what the type of bench and the material is. That's okay because in essence, you're protecting your equipment, but at the same time, you're also protecting the bench from, any further damage if you needed to. But those I think are very worthwhile in the sense of being able to give you the surface you need, and at the same time, you're leaving no trace, behind and leaving all your gear and everything like that. So there's that. And the last thing is what I call the Helinox style folding table. If you can't find a park bench, I always have that table with me. I have the large version. I love it. I can put all my gear on it, put my battery, my laptop, and most of the time we can put 2 people, 2 ops, and operate from there. So there's always that option. And it's, again, along that hiking attitude, pack in small and light and set up and then put all back and carry it right out and you're all good to go. Anything I missed out of some of the equipment that you want to add there? Or did anybody in the chat throw anything in?
No, they're just talking about the monster mats. Roger says he needs to get one of those monster mats.
Yeah, I don't have Quirky QRP's link. If Shannon wants to dig that up, you can head over to his website. He does a great job with that. I know Grouch has got one. Mike's got one. Everyone's done one. I haven't gotten on the bandwagon yet about it. I'm definitely considering one. So you never know. We might see one in the future. We could maybe do a Brew and Activate one. See how that one goes. Okay, so the demonstrating some of the tips, I think, when we talk about leave no trace behind and the ethos around that. Obviously, this is my Boy Scout, Eagle Scout kind of coming out here. So this is what I learned as a Boy Scout and very much applied to everything that I do. Leave the site cleaner than you found it. As always, we always used to do the patrol walkthrough, and even if it wasn't our trash, we would still pick it up. We'd still, improve the situation better than we left it. And it always paid off in dividends because they always just invited us back. Same thing goes for, POTA activations. We talked about staying on marked paths, avoiding vegetation for antenna placements and runs. Watch out for those wildlife signs of, certain areas being roped off. Don't think that you're, excluded from that. And that, that kind of goes for us at the beach. I find this a lot too. Trying to find a spot at the beach, especially during like summer months, is a little harder because a lot of the beach picnic areas are usually always reserved or taken up by people. So trying to find a place that you can set up an antenna, because not a lot of those antennas, like wire antennas, can be done at a beach relatively easy because trying to find a stake mast or whatever, a location to set up a wire. So think maybe verticals. Think the AOK vertical antenna that I know the Ham Radio Duo's got for small footprints. Mad Dog's got a small Shorty 40. All of those kind of vertical antennas might be better served. Or just a simple base and a stake mount that you could put in the sand or in the grass and run your vertical 17-foot whip. You can do most bands, with that from, 20, 10, 15, depending on what you want to do. So think in those terms, smaller footprint and, less equipment. This one's a one that, kind of goes dovetail with generators for those that love to bring power with them. Bring a battery. Stop, hauling the small little Honda generator to, a POTA park. Try to keep the noise down because you're going to a POTA park a lot of times to get a lower noise floor. Don't add to it. minimize that and minimize that for the folks around you. And from a headphones and microphone standpoint, if you have to listen to the radio, and I usually do this, I try to be cognizant of the volume on the radio. Make sure that's not super loud and bothering people around you. And you can kind of gauge that pretty quickly. Like if you're in a park area that has multiple park benches and multiple pavilions, and you set up, adjust your volume and then look around you to see if people actually are hearing what you're hearing. And if they are hearing it, then it's too loud. Turn it down a little bit. Basically be cognizant of that so you're not disturbing them, and then therefore they're not, acting like Karens and, going over the park ranger and saying, hey, that moron over there, he's got his radio too loud, go talk to him, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I know you're not a big fan of like wearing a headset. I myself, I usually do wear a headset, especially if I am, outside the vehicle for a
Yep.
number of reasons, one of which being, so that I can hear a little bit easier what, signals are coming through if they're somewhat weak because the ambient noise level might be high. But also so that you don't disturb other people. So, we lost Eric. Oh gosh. So to continue my thought there, I know Eric likes to wear maybe like a headphone that has one ear covered and one ear open. That
Point
way.
was.
Yeah, he's back. Okay, good.
You're back. You fell away.
No, you fell away.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Okay, now I just fell away on the view. Weird. Okay.
So yeah, so where was I going? Okay, so I know you're a fan of like if you're gonna wear a headset, wear it where it has one ear open, one ear closed. That way you can still remain situationally aware of what's going on around you. But you still get the benefit of like you can sort of get into those weak signals a little bit more and also not disturb the people around you, right? Because if you were going to a park or a wildlife management area, because again, noise pollution is still pollution, right?
Yep.
So going back to, the subject that, we kind of started the show with here, noise pollution is still pollution. So we don't want to disturb other people that might be trying to enjoy the parks. We don't want to disturb the wildlife. We want to try to create the least amount of impact around us as possible when we are going out there to be ham radio operators. So, I personally recommend wearing a headset if at all possible. And, I know sometimes, like, for example, with Shannon, she's always activating with her husband. So maybe having a headphone splitter so that you guys can both, hear what's happening on the radio.
Yep.
Is, maybe a good idea there. Cause I know that's, the one time that I don't use a headset is if I'm with multiple people and everybody wants to hear the radio, or if I'm trying to record my activation, then obviously we want the recording to pick up who we're talking to. Cause otherwise we just sound like we're talking to ourselves and we sound crazy.
Which I find I do anyway when I'm assembling my antenna. I don't know why, but it must give me a good balance of sanity while I'm putting things up instead of getting frustrated. So just one quick comment. I am sad to hear it, man. Sorry, N2, NWK, man. I can totally understand that, some people's opinions can definitely ruin a moment, but hopefully you persevere on and keep going, man. And bring others with you. It might, definitely add to the less of a stressful situation, we'll say, and whatnot. But sorry to hear, man, that really stinks. All right. The other things I wanted to touch base really quickly on one thing that we alluded to, but was the last piece, which is, and Shannon kind of called it, what'd you call this? The brain dump or the
info dumping?
Info dumping. Yes. So this is very much what I call educate the curious without overwhelming them. Let's, give a brief explanation. I think we all touched on that one. That is, practice this. Write it down if you have to, but make it very simple. You don't have to be overly complex. You don't have to get into any of the licensing FCCs. But if you find you're doing this and you're communicating this to people and you're always like hunting for thoughts and you're doing that and just stop for like 5 seconds. Just say, hey, I'm playing radio. And a lot of people will be okay with that response. And, and don't try to be sarcastic, especially if they're like, oh, you're doing bird migrations, or you're doing, a fire test. We had a park, a rail trail. There's a lot of the fire department does their training there at the pond for diving and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're doing something with the fire department? I'm like, no, no fire department related stuff. Don't be sarcastic with that process. Just keep it very simple, very brief, and be inviting with your response, not sarcastic, although I can get myself into trouble there sometimes, for sure. Talk about the emergency communication part of it sparingly. Like, don't do it. Don't invite fear and anxiety into the conversation. Just keep it simple. Don't talk about this as an emergency communication component, because it has that component, but in essence, you're not doing it. You're not training. You are training in an indirect way. You're not doing it as an official Aries type exercise or whatever, or you're not in a set or whatever. So unless you are, then that's a whole different, you're not doing POTA, but yeah. And then invite them in to listen to a QSO. I think this is an important one. A lot of us forget. Like, a lot of times when, especially we're doing a dual op, if you've got the other op and they're making contacts, you become the narrator. You kind of explain to them, like, hey, do you want to listen to this conversation? Hey, this person's from, in this general area of the world. Kind of just give them very high level like points that says, hey, we're talking to someone from Spain right now. Their name's Juan, and, we're exchanging, a signal report if that's, they ask more about that. But just keep it very light, very open, with the idea that they can very much, be part of the conversation, and it's not like info dumping, like Shannon said. Just stay away from it. Don't do it. Avoid it at all costs. And then, let them kind of go away with it. Let them know that, we're doing this as a fun way, as a hobby. Stress that it is a hobby and that we're all doing this for fun, and we just like playing radio and making contacts. And it'll go a long way for a lot of opportunities, and that goes across the board for everybody. So whether it's you're dealing with an official or you're dealing with just the public, just keep it simple, keep it inviting and engaging, and let them ask questions, and then just give them simple answers back. So that was a lot. But hopefully you guys got a whole mess of stuff that you can kind of use maybe in your next POTA. I don't know. What's the sense here? Am I a talking head today?
No,
Okay.
I think that this was a great conversation. I hope that maybe it gave some people a little something to chew over, because I know, everybody is maybe a little upset that the wildlife management areas in Virginia got removed. And I know, maybe I'm playing a little bit of the devil's advocate where, I'm sort of the mind of I understand why they maybe had to do that. And maybe we don't think so much about the things that we do that can possibly impact the environment and the animals and the plants and the people around us. So, we need to be a little bit more mindful maybe of what we do, how we do it, and
Yeah.
not just get so much, so much tunnel vision. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, even though Virginia removed the wildlife management areas, who knows if they could possibly come back maybe after some, discussion, or, maybe some revision of the rules, maybe lay out a little bit more guidelines. But also, I'm sure there is still plenty of other parks in Virginia that can be activated. So it's not like POTA's going away.
No, but this is I think two things. So Chris had a comment about I just lost it in here real quick. It takes one sad ham to ruin for the rest of us. Yes and no. I don't think that this is a one sad ham type thing. I think this was just a confusion of the popularity of the program, and then not having guidelines enough for both the POTA community and the park rangers to work in. And so because it's a government owned activity or a government owned space, that, you know, they're going to have to follow their rule sets. And yeah, we could always be the asses in basically, you know, but it doesn't really help in the long run. It's so much better that if we put the right kind of guidelines around it for us as being ambassadors, as we all said, to doing it right, it is going to help in the long run for when we, you know, for the future hams that come in. And this is my biggest thing. It's like, we all sit here in this hobby and we all like, the hobby's dying, blah, blah, blah. We need to bring new young hams in here. But dude, what are we doing now to be able to keep the things that we have in place that are successful and awesome and are doing amazing things for the ham radio hobby in play and intact for the future for those guys, so they can enjoy it just as much as we did and make it that much more better. More better. Anyway, that much more, you know, fun and exciting, so they can, in essence, continue to move the hobby forward. Because if we don't have POTA, like, I don't know what I would do if we didn't have POTA. Like, my shack is not built, and I'm in an HOA. I'm not built to be able to get out there and set up as many antennas as I want and build the ultimate home, you know, shack. So the only option I have left is mobile, and that's, you know, sort of even limited in its nature. But, you know, Parks on the Air is an important opportunity for us to be able to keep moving, to keep supporting, to, you know, be good ambassadors, both within our small little communities and teaching others outside of those communities that are ham radio operators to stop being jackholes. Sorry, Sean. And you know, be better and start doing some really good to support the hobby and keep it going. So I'm going to kick the soapbox out from underneath my feet here. But I appreciate you guys sticking around here and hanging out and listening. Hopefully you guys definitely got some, you know, information out of this. And at the same time, you know, hey, promote this stuff in your clubs, promote this stuff in your circles that you hang out with. Make sure people are aware that, you know, this is something that we don't want to lose. We want this to keep going, and just be better, as we've heard several times. So, all right. Any last bit of comments in the chat we want to do before we kind of wrap this up?
No, people are basically just saying, you know, Chris said we don't need more rules. KISS method is always better. Shannon
Yep.
said not necessarily more rules, just dummy down the current rules and make it as simple as it can be. You know, I don't know. I think people need rules because people don't seem to be able to, you know, rule themselves. At least some
Yep.
people, you know, we all know that common sense is not exactly as as common as we would wish it to be. So, um, you know, and even when you do have rules, for some reason, some people seem to think that the rules just don't apply to them. So,
Yep. Back to that whole, you are an ambassador, you are an Elmer, you are a you know, an advisor, or, you know, a
right.
supporter.
So that actually brings up a good point, is that everyone is an Elmer to someone, right? Everyone is a mentor to someone. So, you know, we all may have our mentors that helped us, but now we are also passing that information on down to newer people, or, you know, trying to encourage people to get into the hobby or whatever. So, you know, we want to make sure that we are passing down the right attitudes, the right information, and, you know, teaching other people to also be good ambassadors of amateur radio, good stewards of amateur radio, and good stewards of the earth.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all hanging out with us today. It was an awesome conversation. The drugs have kicked in, man, and I'm ready to go conquer the world. I'm probably going to come off a hard crash after this in a couple hours, so I have to go refuel. And with that, you know, thanks again for tuning in for today's Brew and Activate. You know, we hope you enjoyed all the stories, tips, parks, adventures, and, you know, whether you're activating, chasing, Key's always had fun. Stay safe and keep exploring, my friend. Keep growing, keep learning.
And so Bricker just asked, he said, when can we hang out again? Any future plans? Hamvention? Well, you don't have to wait till Hamvention to hang out with us again, Bricker, because you can catch us tonight at 7 o'clock for the Northeast Ham Radio Christmas Extravaganza live stream, where there will be many giveaways. So join us tonight on my channel, probably Eric's channel, even though he said he might not be there because he's feeling kind of sick.
We'll see.
And on
Drugs may help.
Live Free and Ham, and Mike's
N2MAK,
channel.
yeah.
N1OG,
Tortoise.
I'm sure. Tortoise.
Yep.
So come and hang out with us and have a good time tonight.
And get some free cool stuff, you never know.
Yes.
The Izzo is driving up in his El Camino, and so it'll be packed full of great gifts. So you don't want to miss on that one. Okay, well,
Izzo Claus.
Izzo Claus. Yes, exactly right. Yeah, Smoke Signals Claus, or however you want to word it. All right. Well, if you like what you saw, definitely subscribe to Shannon and I's channel. Make sure you like and share this with fellow POTA enthusiasts, man. The more we spread this out, the more we can learn, the more we can grow. And if you got a topic or something that you want to share, you want us to dive into, for sure, head on over to our Discord, and you can leave that in the N1JUR Brew Activate channel there, and we'll make sure we get it into the rotation. We have definitely done some in the past. It's been really, really good. And as always, make sure you check out all the sponsors that help support the show: Reliance, Mad Dog, and Spooltana, and Halibut Electronics. You can head over to n1jur.com/discounts. You can get all the discount codes there. I make nothing off them. They're all just there for you guys to be able to save a little and support those local ham radio businesses as well. And as always, remember, as Shannon said, we gather here every Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope you see you next week. And thanks again. And until next time, keep those radios on, the PTT down, and POTA on.
POTA on.